Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your ambassador with KADY TV, and welcome to another segment of Good Morning Oxnard. Sometimes it's called Wake Up Oxnard, but we are here at the Rio School District, and I have some very important people to my left, and I'd like to go ahead and read out just the purpose of this meeting. But the Rio School District and other leading districts throughout the country are shifting the instruction in order to better prepare students for the 21st century world that demands students have the 4 C's along with traditional literacy. The 4 C's include communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. This video session brings together 3 long-time, even though they look very young, educators with diverse views and experiences to discuss the exciting times in American public education. The participants will discuss each of the 4 C's and dig deep into the strengths and the challenges perceived in both our schools and in our students. So with that, I would like to introduce, starting from your right, who is Dr. John Polisi, and he is the superintendent of Rio School District. And then we have Oscar Hernandez, and he is the assistant superintendent of educational services of Rio School District. And of course, last but not least, we have Dr. Joe Mendoza, the Director of Special Population and Education Support Department. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for being a part of this. So many different things going on, but let's start off with Dr. John here and just help us define this one of the 4 C's in communication.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Peter. And it's my great pleasure to work with my 2 colleagues, Oscar and Joe, in this form of communication, getting out to the public what we're talking about when we're talking about 21st century learning skills and practices. Here at the Rio School District, along with many leading school districts across the country, we're thinking about those practices and skills that the corporate world and the civic world are saying our students need to be a citizen and to be a worker in this new age. For me, many of those things that are skills are timeless things that we've always been working on, but in particular, those 4 C's are the things that we are rethinking our curriculum and instruction on. And in terms of communication, we're working with our students to make sure that they can read, that they can write, that they can speak, that they can present information, they can present their learnings, that they can express information in a variety of ways, including like what we're doing right now. Video, music, art, technology, in a variety of different ways, and also in a variety of different contexts. So that is not just individual responding to a teacher, raising your hand in class, but it's working together in groups, communicating to large audiences, small groups, and all of these things are things that are important out into the work world, as well as the broader community. Another layer here at the Rio School District, and in particular at the Rio Real Dual Immersion Academy, is that students are able to read, write, speak, and present in multiple languages. At Rio Real, it's Spanish and English, but they're also working on other languages such as Mixteco languages. And that gives you just a really simple and basic frame on communication at the Rio School District.
Very well articulated. Thank you very much. And may I call you Oscar?
Absolutely.
Okay, will do. So we were wondering if you could just elaborate and give us an insight from English learners and some other perspectives. Take a couple minutes to kind of educate and entertain our audience.
When it comes down to English learners, you're talking about a population that really needs those skills, and you need to have a system to teach them how to communicate in many settings. Dr. Puglisi brought up the Mixteco population that we have in the district. Number one, the students, they are learning Spanish, right, in society, but also English. So now, different sets of students bring different customs to the table. Let me give you an example. I remember being a little kid going to visit my grandfather, okay, and so my father said, let's go to the casa, let's go to the house. That means the big house. And so I remember that my father, I will get there, I will literally say hello to my father like this, to my grandfather, and I would kiss his hand out of respect. My father wouldn't look at my father's eyes. So of course, as a student, you're used to, you don't ask any questions in the classroom because you're supposed to just learn it, go back to school, go back home and do your work, do what you're supposed to do. So now, as an immigrant myself, as an ELD kid, you come to a classroom setting where there is a different sets of customs. We need to make sure that we are sharing with our students the ways to communicate effectively in the classroom. That's the first thing. We're going to learn how to communicate in the classroom, but also I need to have the academic language in English, in math, in science, in social sciences, and also in the regular setting, such as when you go to a restaurant, how do you eat? Body language is another way to communicate. Notice that I use my hands a lot.
I was hoping you would. I just wonder why you didn't kiss his hand. That was missing. You'd like to do that over again, the handshake. Kiss, Dr. John.
I do that nowadays with my father's uncles. Whenever we go down there or visit my uncles or my aunts, nowadays, this weekend I visited one of my uncles and it's just customary. You kiss her hand when you see him. I
like it. Very impressive. Good insight. And again, really live experience. And I am going to call you doctor, okay? Because I respect you, and I'm also afraid of you, Dr. Joe Mendoza. I want if you'd add some insight from a migrant and other perspectives, and take a couple minutes to again inform our audience some of the wisdom you have in your head on that one.
Thank you very much for the comments. My esteemed friend and colleague, Dr. Puglisi and Oscar as well, bring up a good point, and that is in terms of communication. It is an exciting time. Rio District, for example, is really a very vibrant district because they take into account the diversity of the student population. But more than that, the basic skills of reading and writing and arithmetic are still there. What's added is this communication. What makes communication so important, as we all know, is that you succeed or fail on your ability to communicate, to express your ideas and your thoughts. So what Rio does, as do other districts, is add to the curriculum opportunities for the children to communicate. My group is a unique group that I represent. Schools weren't designed for migrant children, that is the children of migrant farm workers. The migrant child isn't going to be here necessarily all year. He'll be here only as long as the season is available, then the parents move and the children go with them. So the challenge that Dr. Puglisi and Oscar have is, how do you teach these children their basic curriculum, reading, writing, arithmetic, and now the art of communication for the short period of time that they're going to be here. And Dr. Puglisi and Oscar do a great job of doing that by creating separate events, separate activities. They have a speech and debate tournament. They'll have a speech and spelling. They have after-school programs where the children can experiment in communication. And in the classrooms as well, they give the children the time to express themselves. The unique group that I represent need those opportunities, including, by the way, homeless, foster, teen parents that we have. They are also unique, but those are addressed very, very well by the Rio District. The art of communication.
Very well stated, and I appreciate that. Now, there are three more C's here, and they're collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. And so, Dr. John, would you give us a concluding statement just based on the last three?
Yeah, well, I think just to kind of reflect on the comments that were made about communication before we jump to collaboration, I just say that both of these gentlemen here are great models and examples of being able to navigate different type of contexts and figure out how to communicate and express their thoughts. And part of that process that they have obviously mastered and continue to develop really comes from a frame of giving students and learners an opportunity to not only know the world and different contexts, but to know themselves. And so a lot of the shifts that we are doing in our 21st century learning become more student-centered and more creative and interest and passion-based. And the goal is that through those types of processes, the student can come to understand themselves, their family, and the community, and that's really the firmament upon building those communication skills, which we're trying to model a little bit today. But as we flip to the next C, collaboration, I'll try to be brief on that, which is difficult for me in this format. Doing anything in 2 minutes is a challenge for me, but something I'm learning. And I did tell Joe I will work on making my video self, a more real expression of the thoughts in my mind, because really video is the new form of literacy in many ways, and we're using video for professional development, for instructional purposes, for promotional purposes, and it's just so easy to do it now because of the new technology. But moving on to collaboration, I would like to paint a picture, and it's a picture that I'm sure Joe will remember for sure, and I know Oscar will remember, and I kind of remember it as well. And that is, you go to school, there are a bunch of desks in a row. You come in, you say good morning to the teacher, they put some papers on your desk, you're quiet, you're in the row, you read the piece of paper, you fill out some work, the teacher might say some things and model some things, you fill out the paper, you turn it in, you wait for recess, yay, you go out, you run around, you talk a lot, you have fun, you play sports, in my case, and then you come back in and then you get out of that. And those are certainly opportunities to collaborate in a certain kind of way, I suppose. But what we're talking about when we talk about both communication and collaboration is some experiences in school will be individualized, very important. Others are truly students working together to solve problems. And the problems themselves that require collaboration are not uni-algorithmic. They're not here, learn the right answer to a problem. It's about bigger problems. It's about bigger challenges. It's about inquiry. And that's the whole reason to have multiple people, because you have different people with strengths and to come together, more like the real world, more like a family, more like work. And so what that means in our schools in the Rio is that it means different furniture sometimes. It means getting rid of furniture sometimes. It means facing the furniture in a different way. But most importantly, going back to the first C, communication, it means giving permission for students and for teachers to talk and to communicate and to work together on projects. So if you come and look at Rio School District now as compared to maybe a few years ago, you're going to see a lot more talking, but also a lot more co-laboring, working together. It also happens to be the tremendous strength of our student body and community. Our students are tremendously gifted in some of these C's. They're very familiar with working together, both in small groups and in large groups. They take to it naturally, and their families have done a wonderful job of working together. And I've already gone past my 2 minutes because I could give you my hypothesis of why that is. But that said, that's kind of the big frame on collaboration. So turn it over to you, Oscar.
That's a lot of pressure, Oscar. How do you follow that?
I know. How do you follow that? And so when it comes down to the English language learner and collaboration, instead of going down and sitting down for 6 hours, not saying anything, just babbling A, B, C, D, having the teacher corrected, and have a quiet classroom, as if like when you go to church. Right? Because when you go to church, you just listen. And you nod your head and yes, I got it. Okay. But in this case, the adult in the classroom, now the shift is the kids are doing the learning. Because the kids are now finding the solution. Within this context, Now you bring communication. And now you bring the vocabulary that the kids need to be successful to solve a problem, whether it's a scientific method or it's an equation. The kids need the language necessary, and the adult now is providing the language in the content area. The kids are working in groups. The kids are having a dialogue about a problem, right? And so if they come up with a solution, or even if they don't come up with a solution, they can present to you, hey, we didn't get this, and here's the reasons why. And so it is just a process of language acquisition, which is a natural way, a natural conversation. And I think here in the Rio School District, we are really taking on that collaboration and communication. One goes with the other.
Yeah.
Now, the classrooms that I visited, there is a lot of pairing and sharing of knowledge. And now you're actually circling the sentence so that you can make your statement and say, you know, here's the solution, and this is the reason why I'm correct. So now you're like a 7-year-old lawyer who is telling the group, here's my solution, here's a page number, and this is why I think I'm correct. Okay, so now you're digging yourselves on the ground based on research that you've done with a partner or in a group. It just doesn't get any better.
I love it. Well, bring us home. Bring us home. Mendoza, bring it home now.
Again, the perspective from my vantage point is the at-risk child. So, in terms of collaboration, the foster child is a ward of the court. He's been taken away from his parents. The homeless lives in a shelter or a car. They don't have a home. The migrant gets up early on his own because his parents have gone at dawn to go to work. These three groups don't know how to collaborate. What they're used to is to do what they're told. So if the parents say, you go to school, behave, don't talk, they're going to do that. When they're in the classroom, it behooves then the teacher, and Rio does a great job of that, of encouraging teachers to create opportunities of collaboration. So these at-risk kids have that experience. They're going to learn how to work together. We take it for granted because our parents taught us how to behave and how to collaborate and take care of your sister and so forth. But when you're a ward of the court and you're taken away from your parents, when you live in a shelter, when you get up and dress yourself every morning, who teaches you? It's the classroom teacher. And Rio does a great job of staff development, of training their teachers on how to give the child, the student, the opportunity to collaborate with others. And that's a challenge today for teachers that my generation of teachers didn't have. My generation is exactly as Dr. Puglisi said. You line up in a row, you listen to what I tell you, you open your book, and you do. We followed the book. We followed the textbook. I was on page 12, everybody was on page 12. That's not true today. Today, teachers have to be really creative in how they teach children. So it's a great time, it really is, in terms of education.
I think Joe brings up two comments that I think are really relevant, and one is related to parents, and something that for many years schools have intended to do, but not necessarily been that successful, and we need to work harder on that. And that is really bringing our parents into our classrooms and communicating to them the expectations that we are having and the whys and the hows, so parents can understand why their students are talking more, why they're collaborating, and then specifically, which our teachers do a really great job of, how to collaborate. Some students aren't natural workers in group. When we look at the research, we know that there are many people who are introverted, and people who are introverted, there's a great book on this called Quiet, that really they just prefer to work on their own. So the second part of that, so it's about communication with the parent, but the second part that Joe really touched on, which is a really profound comment, and we want parents and teachers to hear this message, and that is, inside of this 21st century context, the job of the teacher is much more challenging. In my mind, it's much more rewarding. and it's much more meaningful to the teacher. It's a full and human experience, and some things that teachers have to do less. Teacher doesn't need to know all knowledge. Students can get that on their device. They can find out information now instantaneously and have a computer talk to them. But facilitating the 4 C's, and in particularly collaboration, is a maintaining of order in a very different context. And we do provide a lot of professional development in a lot of different contexts, but I will also tell you that you will continue to hear in this district and in other districts, it's not enough professional development, because we're shifting something that is at the core central to the job of teaching, which is great for students. There's just more feedback loops for them. That's another simple thing to think about, is feedback loops. And the more feedback loops there are for students, which come from their peers, listening to environmental talk, listening to people talking about their processes, the more they can move from that. So with that said, maybe you'll prompt us for C number 3.
For close, I don't know if there's so many C's, but you know, the more I get a chance to listen to educational leaders like yourself, I am so encouraged, and now in the future what this world's going to be like. And it's almost like I'm hearing all hands on deck. All hands on deck. Every child has a gift within them. It doesn't matter where they live, who raised them, the gift is there. And you know, I gotta say, teachers, the same thing with collaboration using technology. Don't be fearful. This is a really exciting time. Gentlemen, I thank you so much for sharing this. Community, business leaders, educational leaders, government leaders, I hope you watch us. Our power is in local community. And come back and check out in a year what the Rio School District is gonna look like. Thank you. And for that, we appreciate you taking the time and watching us. It's Peter Godinez, your ambassador from KADY. We'll see you soon.